Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the back office teardown lab. Yes, 1 week in quarantine. It is a weird old week, I have to say. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but you know, getting used to it. So we're back to the Nafanya, and of course I want to do a reasonable video on this, but if you watched the last video you know I'm first just inspecting the parts because I don't necessarily have everything needed to get it going right now, and it came in a nice presentation case. There are a lot of things we need to go through, but the main thing we need to go through is the power supply. Now I have found a death adapter, you can see I'm protected, to try this, powering it on, but I don't actually want to without having a look inside first. Interestingly enough, look at this. The plug is a 2-pin plug, but it has some polarization on it, which makes me worried that this could be a live chassis. So that's something we definitely need to check out, because of course you don't have an earth on a 2 wire flex like this, and you do have some kind of live, I say live, kind of exposed screws that may or may not be live. So what we're going to do is take our screwdriver, which is a flathead. We're not plugged in, by the way. And we're just going to start undoing some of the screws. There's a little fuse in here. Let's check the fuse. It's 1/2 amp. In fact, let me show you this, by the way. This power supply is quite novel. It's a very interesting light blue, quite cheap plastic. And what really makes it interesting, it's reminiscent of plastics we had in the UK, which would have been from the 60s, I want to say. Really, by the time we got to the 80s, nothing looked like this, but obviously it persevered. Technologies differ from place to place. Now I'm going to try to hold this up. Ooh, there you go. Maybe you can just about see it. It's all in Cyrillic, so I can't read this, but there are some markings on there. 220 volts here, AC, that's what you can read there, and it says 9/12B. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the gauge. And then 1/2 amp fuse. So we'll pop that fuse out, which is just twist and turn affair. Let's test the fuse. That's always a good thing. Got my continuity tester here on the side, and I'm just going to go from the top of the fuse to the little tang here. Fuse is good. That's always a good sign, isn't it? Now I think we'll just proceed by undoing all the screws we can find, because we've got no idea how this is assembled. So I would just pop all the screws out, because normally on AC adapters, especially these days, you don't even have the option of screws. They're all sealed for life, whereas this isn't. If you recall from our teardown of the Nafanya, there was no power regulation, or at least there didn't appear to be any visible power regulation on the board, which, if you know the original ZX Spectrums, they had a lot of that on the board, and big heat sinks internally, which are always a bit clunky. So we didn't see any of that at all. So I'm hoping this power supply is a good one, which is a bit regulated. It's nice and big. It's pretty, well, I don't say it's necessarily bigger than the ZX Spectrum. I can't really remember the ZX Spectrum, but I do remember it being quite a brick. Anyway, let's pop this open. So I'm just working my way around, seeing if there's anything. No, but this is a suspicious little fella, isn't it? It kind of looks like it wants you to shove a screwdriver in there. Let's find one with a nice wide end so we don't damage this. And oh, I heard a creak. There we go. It actually has split the shell. We've split the shell to get at its goodness. Yep. Oh, and there we go. Well, look at that. Now, that's fascinating. So there's a glued on thing here. I wonder what that would have been originally. Some perhaps neon indicators, or a switch, or a slider. Anyway, doesn't matter. It doesn't actually appear to line up with anything on this board anyway. So you have, oh, there we go. We've actually unscrewed it at the base. So we could have probably left those 4 screws in if we wanted to keep it there, which is fine. So we have a metal chassis, which is really unusual nowadays. And you can see there is a power supply on there. We're just tilting it around. We can zoom in here on the chips. KP142EH15. So what's that? Some sort of rectifier perhaps? Who knows? Now if we want to have a look at this, we'll have to peel this away, undo that and peel this over, which we will do. But before we do, just inspecting it, there's our output port there. I'm just looking at it. There's some interesting soldering there. So my guess would be that, we'll check this out, I think that ground is on pin 2, and here this chassis is grounded, so pin 2 is sort of like the circuit ground, and power, some crazy soldering here, power is coming in on these pins, so I think that's a ground, that's a chassis ground, and I think these 4 might be power, so we'll check that out when we flip it over, but we'll obviously be able to buzz that out. A little bit of stray metal, pick that off. Let's unscrew those screws now. Oh, could hear that, breaking the seal. Now these things, I'm sure, are probably, I think someone mentioned in the Discord that they seemed to have 1990-ish date codes or late 80 date codes on these things, so potentially this hasn't been opened since then, and I have lost a screw. Let me just retrieve it before we lose that, because these machine screws of a slot are going to be pretty tricky to find. It would be nice to keep it all original, or at least as original as we need. So we're going to peel that over, and it's all soldered as if it was a kit, like literally you made this yourself. This is exactly like the same construction if you made your own PCB like we did back in the day, and I did find a tub of ferric chloride, so we could make a PCB like this just to show you. It definitely always looked like this. So this looks like hand soldered kit, basically, the same way. I'm sure it's factory made, but that's the same kind of vibe you get from it. And not particularly well hand soldered, so I'm just unraveling this. We don't want to tear any of these wires. We won't know where they went. There we go, we're almost there. Look at that. And now we can get the whole thing in frame. So the first things first, the way this has a standoff on the frame with an insulated washer there kind of implies this isn't a live frame. So I'm just going to put this onto continuity. You'll hear the beep. And we've got the 2 ends of the plug, so I'm just going to, oh, and they twist off. Who knew? Sorry, I'm just going to unravel a bit more wire. I don't know why. It's incredibly short all of a sudden. So we're going to just probe the shell there, and nothing on that pin. And it's not actually touching anything else. Nothing on that pin. So yeah, the chassis would effectively be, could be earthed. And I think that's why you had that screw on the end, so potentially you could probably earth that. And then let's see what else we have here. We have our DIN. There seems to be some sort of regulation on board, and let's see where that's going in the circuit. In fact, that what appears to be a regulator on there is just totally remote. It's just wired from the PCB to there, so it's like a remote mounted regulator potentially, because it's heat sinking onto this chassis. Obviously you have the transformer down here, there's nothing too interesting about that. So you have the what would probably be the live coming through here, and then is on the primary of the transformer, then the secondary going to our PCB here. There you've got a nice big capacitor that doesn't look too bad at all, it's just a bit loose. A couple of ceramic caps, another little electrolytic cap, an adjuster, probably a voltage adjuster here, so if we want to dial in that 5 volts. A 6-legged beast. Now what could the 6-legged beast be? Well, let's, oh, and there's a big old scrape there. So I'm just looking at our 6-legged beast then. So we've got these 2 wires that are dangerously close to each other. I might actually just touch that solder and pull that through, because look, look at this, look. You know, I don't know, it just doesn't fill me with confidence. It's probably fine, but doesn't fill me with confidence. Just going to turn them over, and that's these 2 connections. I think that's a rectifier there. I think that's a full wave bridge rectifier going on, and then it's just going through the usual stuff. And there's a little choke there to clean things up. So it's all very power supply, very regulated looking. Now I really don't know what this guy's doing though. This is kind of fascinating to me because it's getting involved in a lot of stuff there. So yeah, we ought to Google this chip. So I found a data sheet on it. It's all in Russian, and then I did a translation, and that really didn't reveal anything. Without sitting on the PC and really going for it, I'm not really going to find out much about this, but it does obviously seem to be part of a power conditioning thing here, because it does look like you're getting there's a plus and minus. I know it's not too clear actually on the camera. Let me brighten this up for you. You have some sort of power plus and minus here on the left showing the circuit. A couple of these transistors, which I'm not seeing on the board, but who knows, they could be part of that chip down there, unmarked chip, I'll have you know. And then there's some sort of output, and it's saying, you know, it says plus 15, minus 15. So who knows, really? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine, but I feel we can wrap this up, basically. Wrap this up and test the power. Yeah, I probably should just put it all back in the box first, though, because with these live contacts like that, there's a good chance of it shorting. In fact, let me just at least put this part on, if we can. Oh, hang on. We're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? I did want to resolder something. So we're going to resolder that leg. That's just a little bit, looking a little bit tasty, as our friend Danny, Mr. Dyer, would say. There we go. That's all it takes, guys. There we go. This is like Nafanya modding. Now, I was having a little think about that chip, and I was thinking about the quality and nature of this YouTube channel. Holy smokes, by the way. Before I do that, holy smoke, look at the top of that fuse, how close it is to that thing with this. Oh, I can't let it go. We're making more modifications, and I'll continue my discussion about this YouTube channel. I was going to say, I feel sometimes that maybe I'm shortchanging you with my lack of willingness to go and find further information about things, you know, and I have to say it's because I'm quite harassed normally. I've only got a few minutes, and it depends what's important to you. So for me, it's only important to know what that chip is if I have to repair it, right? So if I put this power supply back together and it works, then I don't care. But that's not the same for other YouTube channels. So there are YouTube channels out there, such as Julian Illit or Big Clive, and these guys, they know their stuff and they'll find it out and let you know. But you know, it's just the way it is, isn't it? It's what keeps me out of the big leagues. Now, I've got a bit of heat shrink on here. I feel as though you learnt about the heat shrink. I mean, that's probably more what you want, isn't it? Practical. I'm going to bend this over slightly. Let's see. I want to bend it over slightly because I want to do everything I can to ensure that that won't touch. You could probably get a piece of like Kapton. Yep, just wanted to make sure these are all the same potential, by the way. I'll show you why. I've bent that over and I'm soldering. You can see the little tang in there that could get touched unnecessarily. We want to make sure that's all the same potential in case we did. And this wire here is one of our output wires. It's going dangerously close to that fuse, so let's pop him down there too. So you could rewire this, by the way. I would suggest if you were going to rewire a plug on here, like a British plug, yeah, I would make sure that you put an earth bond onto this part, and then you'll be good. Then if any of these things shorted out, you'd be pretty much safe. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to do that right now and just let my kids probably play this. Loosening this just to give myself a little bit more. Because I just want to know if it works. After it works, then we invest the time. Invest the time. And of course, really, looking at the specifications for the power supply, it wouldn't be very difficult to find a regulated 5-volt power supply that would do the trick. In fact, look at this. This is annoying me too. I don't know. Crikey. Let's get this right. Okay. I'm happy that that's okay to be there, but not looped and tied up like a bloody knot with the other thing. So let's get that there. My word. At this point, I should have changed the plug on it. Okay. Now we're good. Let's clean off that little bit of solder touched on there. Let's get to there. Could be a little bit more generous with the length, but I think we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Together, we'll get through it. Oh, that's nice. That is. Don't know, you can see that. That was a good job. That was a good job. Right, let's, before we congratulate ourselves too much, I'm just going to see if there's a way I can manipulate some heat shrink to get it ever so slightly further up here. Oh, yes sir. That's good. But I don't want to heat the end because it will shrink too much. I want to heat it on the side here. Just let it... You can see, by the way, I'm using a lighter today. Lazy. Try not to set anything on fire. If you use this handy dandy trick. Right, and have a look there. You can see that now is a little bit better than it was. I'm going to put this on again even more gingerly. Yeah, just one other thing though. Look, this cap and that contact. Let's just check something. I want to see if the can of the capacitor is going to one of these contacts, which it almost certainly should be. Nothing there. Oh, it's not. So the can of the capacitor seems to be independent of the lead. So, yeah, we might... Let me tell you what, we're not. I was almost conceding to just leave it as is, but no, I think we'll just cut a little bit of insulation tape and put that on that can. My word, aren't I being cautious today? So I'm just taking my scissors to it. I'm doing a good job. Rather than just tearing at it with my teeth, as is normally the case. A little bit of that. I'm just going to bend this over. I might put two lots. I'm going to put one like that. I'll put a little bit of extra. That's fine. Fine by me. Sorry about the clitter clatter of tools on the bench. That's how you can tell it's a real workbench. Right. I liked how I rhymed the word workbench with bench. This is poet laureate stuff. Okay. There, I mean, that's fine, isn't it? Have another go. It was fine before you opened it. It's only not become fine because you've observed these things that you don't like the look of. It's like Pavlov, no, not Pavlov's dog. Schrodinger's cat. God, all these dogs and bloody cats. I wonder if any other animals have entered the famed halls of science. I'm trying to think which other would make an interesting beast to base your theory on. We could have Armstrong's parrot. I don't know what my parrot theory would be, but it would be bloody interesting. And no one would understand it until well after I expired. Okay, Armstrong's parrot. You know, is it necessary? You tell me down below. Did I waste my time doing this? Because there was a clear 5mm gap. Bang, bang, bang. You just drop it off the table, bang, something might happen. Probably not, but it might. And if it happens up your fingers. So let's leave it at that. We'll say that was a good job. I'm just putting my eyes through here, looking through all the angles here. That's absolutely fine. So, Mr. Nafanya, let's get my piece of solder out of the way before we do ourselves a mischief with that. We're about to turn on the mains, and let's do that. Let's pop some mains on. So I've got my depth adapter. Now, remember on the UK plug, you've got live and neutral, and this has got a plus and minus. We'll assume we want the plus to go to live, because that might be how they intended it, although it shouldn't have too much of an effect. Now, don't do this at home. You can see I'm running it on my board, which is pretty much insulated resin board, and I've eyeballed it up. Oh my god, I've seen some more stuff. I found another thing I'm not quite happy with, and I'm just going to show you by peeling away the layers. So remember this guy, this what we think is probably a regulator. It's on the board with this little piece of plastic tape on it, and the leads to it do have heat shrink, but you'll notice that they don't go up the ends fully. And at the angle I was holding it, in fact I can see now, it's almost shorting. It's literally, probably if I just pushed on that a little bit when this was turned on, it would short. So I thought, well, before we finally put this all back together, it might be an idea to, one, bend those legs up anyway, and two, see if there's any possibility for me to get this heat shrink pushed further on up there, and at least get some other tape or something underneath them. So one of these three, and it's firm as hell. Better just to take that out, I think. Camera's gonna go wild, and the camera goes wild. Oh, yeah. Right, here we go. All these washers. It's like a Meccano kit. So there's that piece of plastic there, which we don't really want to lose. So we'll keep that back here. Oh, get up. You. I don't know why it's got a red end on it. I wonder if that's a factory colour there. Look, there's your red end. So you could probably replace that, by the way, if it is a 5-volt reg. And we'll try to get the schematics for this power supply and see. We could put modern parts in there. But so I flattened it out more. Yes. Oh, no. Yes and no. Of course, that heat shrink is too short. So if we want to do a good job of this, we're going to have to redo it. Or, let's see, I'm a bit lazy now. I was going to go get out more heat shrink and mess around with it. But we do have an option. You're not going to like the option because it's a bit naughty. But then I think we're all a bit naughty, aren't we, on this channel? So I'm just going to plug in my solder iron because I need to be aware of what I'm doing. I don't have the pinouts for this thing. I keep plugging in the wrong thing. And what I'm going to do is we're going to tackle this one at a time by desoldering one of the wires like that. Oh, they're not even twisted. And then we're going to just cut this shorter by a good, ooh, I'd say that's a good 5mm. Oh, this is the side cutters I use on naughty things. I don't know if you've got a pair of naughty side cutters, good side cutters. The good side cutters are the ones you use for all of your proper soldering projects, and the naughty side cutters for chomping on bits of metal and it damages them and then they don't work anymore. So that's what that one was. So there is a bit of solder. And then simply, it's a case of just reattaching that further up the shaft. And then, booyah! Look at that. So we do that to all three of them, and then we can screw it back in. That's the last wire done, so I want the bend to come up from here now and none of that, so that's fine. We're going to put this piece of plastic back down, although shouldn't really be necessary anymore, and I'm going to run that underneath the wires and hopefully align it all up with this machine screw. The downside is with these slot head machine screws, they're a lot less friendly in terms of assembling because you really have to work that slot head. You don't have that even pressure you get on a Phillips. You've got to, there we go. Make sure it's all lined up properly, which I have, so that's good. We're not talking massive challenge, we're just talking a slight more challenge. And I'm going to nip it in like that. Yeah, that's way better. Now, I think before I screw it, I'm going to just have another look. This time, I think we're good to go. Although, no, I'm not going to do any more. I just want to show you. I probably would put heat shrink on all of these as well, just to give them a little bit of extra support so they don't poing off onto mains things. But since we've put this on here, I think we're okay. It's the moment of truth, guys. We're not plugging it in just yet. Just need to add the fuse. There we go. The fuse is added. And we'll unplug our soldering iron. I'm going to plug in now this unit. Obviously hand covering face, as is tradition. Now, we're going to put our meter on. It's on DC, and if you recall, I reckon that the center pin here was ground, and these pins were voltage. 5.14, 5.14, 5.13, same thing really, just me reading it wrong. 5.13, and if I touch to the chassis, hang on, why are we reading 5.13? There we go. So if I'm reading on the chassis, and then I'm just going to touch it on there, it's floating. It's interesting actually. Yeah, good. So this chassis ground is not the 0 volts reference. So yeah, you definitely could put an earth strap on that. I'm pretty confident that this is not live, but I'm not going to test that. I think we're fine as is. Almost tempted though to go look for a flex to upgrade this while I've got it all, but I think the problem we have is, and it is unplugged, the problem we have is that I'm not sure what's thin enough. So if you have an idea, tell me of a thin flex that you think exists that has an earth in it. Probably something for a lamp. That's probably the only thing that we might have would be a lamp. So I'm just putting the assembly as the reverse of the disassembly, and I'm leaving the that internals loose because we know we can screw that afterwards, and it might just give me a little bit more play to lock this in without really breaking the plastic or anything. We really don't want to break it, though it doesn't feel particularly brittle. Okay, I think we're in. Bend that in, and yeah, it's clamped. Then now just the last few screws, and we do have that earth. I'm sure this screw here, although it does help keep the case closed, if you don't, if the case wasn't going to rely on those clips only, it would certainly help to keep the case closed. I just have that gut feeling. Oh, put it in the wrong hole. I've got the gut feeling though that it was potentially an earth bonding strap. So I don't know. Anybody from the Soviet Union or Russia? Yeah, let me know, or any other sort of Eastern European countries. What's common with the ground in those days? Was it something separate you could add, or did you eventually have it as part of your connector? I think still most places are 2-pin. Maybe the only thing I recall from European plugs, like the Schuko plug that you have in Germany, has an external ground earth ring. And I think in Switzerland there's a weird variation on the 2-pin plug that does have an additional earth pin, a whole dedicated earth pin in the middle. But of course, all inferior to the hefty British plug. Got that in there. And then there's your last one there. All good in the hood. So I think we're drawing close to the point where we're going to be able to test out our little brute. Let's leave that at that, and power it on. The only things we need to do next, and stay tuned in the next video, is we're going to see how to interface to the TV out, because we don't have any leads for it. You have the Kempston joystick, but the joystick's in the box, and you're going to see that when I reveal everything else that this comes with. And here you've got the tape in out, which is kind of less important. We'll just assume this works if we can get the right sort of DIN connector for it. But yes, that's the next challenge on the next video. Please stay tuned when we hook this up. Oh, hang on. Before we go, dare I? I dare. Dun 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 dun. Here goes nothing. A light came on. A light is on, guys. That is a good sign, isn't it? That the power supply is definitely working. I don't know if you can hear that. There is a small noise. That's a click, if ever I heard one. This thing is probably alive. Is there a way of making it make a sound, play a tune? I'm looking here, I can't see anything. But anyway, we'll have to figure that out. Use ZX Spectrum, guys. Tell me what to type in if you want me to see if there's a sound there, and I'll chuck you a video for that. Stay tuned to the next video. Have a great time if you're in confinement over the weekend, and I will see you on the other side. As ever, thanks for watching. Come chat to me in Discord. If you want to buy me coffee, go on Patreon. Goodbye.